Welcome to season 2 of That Witch podcast. I'm so excited to welcome you here, to welcome you back to, of course, the always amazing pre-show, YouTube exclusive tarot reading. Without further ado, let's get into it today, shall we? If you like tarot readings and if you like what I have for you here today, don't forget to like this video. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I put out tons of content every week. You can find ways to connect with me on YouTube and everywhere else I'm at below in the description. But for now, make sure if you're sitting or standing, you feel as like your weight is as evenly distributed as possible. You feel nice and balanced and grounded. If you feel so called, you can go ahead and close your eyes. And then let's all take a nice deep breath in together. Exhale that out. Open yourself up. Open your eyes if you like. And open yourself up to any insights, any messages, any guidance that you may be seeking or needing right now. Let's see who came out. We have here, my friends, my lovely, lovely neighbors in the neighborhood here, the reversed King of Swords. Now, the King of Swords in his upright position here is quite the balanced, sharp, clever, really intelligent master of his suit, okay? He represents one divine half of the mastery of that suit of swords, and the queen represents the other half, the other divine half of the mastery of this suit. And when we're in swords, we're in the air element, we're in our heads, we're in our minds, we're in the space of intellect. And when we get swords out of balance, in reverse, first of all, we always have an overactive mind. We have and typically it is very honed in and focused on one or two things, okay? The king, because of this, is this person who is really extremely cold, quite often to the point of cruelty, sometimes knowingly, sometimes unknowingly. Definitely distracted and focusing on something else, especially when it's unknowingly kind of taking our shit out on other people. So a lot of times the King of Swords reversed is this energy of feeling like so much shit is stacked against you. Just one thing after another. And quite honestly, we're being tested with the double-edged nature of the sword. Are your circumstances beginning to dull your blade? Are your circumstances beginning to dim your shine? Are these jading you? Really take some time to reflect on that. I do want to pull I feel very called to a little advice card here. If this is you, I think that you need to really explore to get to the source and what's distracting you and why you're being distracted. Sometimes we're hyper-focusing on something to avoid something else, but sometimes we're hyper-focusing on something because we're just operating out of total fear. Fascinating. Okay, we got a clarity, got a little advice. I like this. So we have the world reversed here, and so this is some open ends. That is that's distracting you and that's keeping your attention right now, okay? It's some loose open ends that still have not been tied off. Like, that's that feeling of it's stacked against you. Maybe it's this fucking thorn in your side, just nagging and nagging while life and other regular, and other big stressors are coming at you and hitting you. And it's this incomplete chapter of yours. Definitely. So, we do get a queen, but we don't get the Queen of Swords. We get the Queen of Wands. Action, 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 my friends. This is a sign that it is time to do something, but hold for a second. I don't necessarily mean in what we would call a masculine way or in an assertive or action-based way. How can you take action without taking action? Good question. The queen in all of the suits represent one of the divine halves of the mastery, correct? And it is the very passive and receptive and intuitive half. And so the Queen of Wands she is a master of action. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying this gal sits still. That's not what I mean. But holy moly, does she know when and how to strike. You have the answers within you. Look at full moon. Hello, we have a full moon coming up in, let's see, you're listening to this on the 8th of February on a Tuesday. And in 8 days on February 16th, we have a full moon in Leo coming up, okay? Full moon in Leo, we're going to talk a little bit more about next episode on Friday. So make sure you come back for this. Come back for that. This reading is actually good reading for that episode. So make sure you come back for that. But the Queen of Wands, this is very, very Leo full moon energy, fire full moon. Whether it's letting it go and releasing it, whether it's taking matters into your own hands and taking care of it yourself and doing it yourself, or holding your ground and holding somebody else accountable. This is, and this is again where the intuitive part of the Queen of Wands come in, or if it's pausing and waiting and saying, I know that it's not time to strike yet. I can feel it coming and now is not the time yet. That's okay too. But right now, the advice card that we are absolutely getting for this is the answers are within you, within your instincts and your intuition, okay? Fire, instincts. So, and maybe use that as inspiration to do a little divining on the Leo full moon if you need some further clarity as we lead up to it, especially once the moon gets into Leo in general, right before it actually hits its full point. You could definitely do some clarity and divination, pull some cards for yourself, do some meditation, cast some runes, right? Do some trance or scrying work. But you could definitely ask for some divine guidance. That's absolutely what the Queen brings with her. The King often brings what's going on in our own mind and our own logic and practicality, that half of that divine mastery. A queen is going to say, this is this inner knowing. That inner knowing that's already there. That's what you need to tap into for any further clarification or answers that you may need on how to move forward, okay? So that we can bring then closure and completion to this cycle, closure and completion to this chapter for you, and start anew. And bring your mind, all of your air energy, all of those qualities about you, bring that all back into balance for you, okay? Being a confident and controlled leader and creator of your own reality in life, okay? Great great start to season 2. I love this. You are in for quite a treat. I am so extra excited for today's episode. Let's not waste any more time. Let's get after it. Hello. Welcome. It's season 2, witches. Hello. Hi, I'm Dani. I'm that witch next door. I'm your host. I'm your guide, your mentor, and instructor in all things magic, witchcraft, astrology, and witchy business. If this is not your first time here, thank you so much for joining us again here in the neighborhood. I always love to have you here. And if this is your very first time listening, welcome to my witchy neighborhood. I am a little extra excited today. Not only is it episode 1 of season 2, but it is on something extremely important and magical and near and dear to my heart. So I'm very excited to get into today's show. But I did want to just let everybody know, season 1, hi, hello, you're amazing. Season 1 was such a success. There was absolutely no way I could have ever imagined how big season 1 was going to be as quickly as it was. Today, I'm coming at you on Tuesday, February 8th. Hopefully though, you did not miss the Moonday Musings reboot, which is now here on the podcast and actually launched yesterday, February 7th. So if you did, make sure you go listen to that episode. It was so fun. But season 1, I can't believe that I get to report this to all of you. But when I closed out season 1, first week of February, as of January 31st, we hit 8.4 thousand downloads just for January alone. Just for January alone. I am absolutely floored to be creating for and offering a project that is so amazingly well received. So, I don't have the stats right in front of me. I probably should, but of all time, we are well over 31,000 downloads. I might be past 32,000 downloads. I haven't checked in about a week. And my loves, we have consistently been on Apple's top 100 spiritual podcasts in the US since, I think, November. Maybe it's December. I can check on that too. But we have been on the top 100 spiritual podcasts in the US for like a minute. So you're amazing. I love all of you so much. Keep sharing the show. If you love to support, that's the best way to support, is to give 5-star reviews, leave a good rating, and then to share the show on social media with your friends, which you're obviously doing. So you're magical and amazing. So what can I offer you today? Something I'm extremely excited to offer you today is one of, it's hard to say it's my absolute favorite, but it might be. I don't like to talk in absolutes, but most of you, if you've been listening to the show or if you just know me in general or have been following me for a while, you know I am a kitchen witch. I talk about it a lot. I wish I posted about it a lot more, and that is something that I'm doing more and more. It's definitely one of my top intentions for 2022. It's exactly why I wanted to start season 2 on a kitchen magic episode. That was for a reason, to really light the match, give the spark. It's something that I practice so freaking frequently and regularly. And I have not built the habit of documenting it. That is where I'm really I'm so good at documenting lots of things. And I think that it's because for me, kitchen magic has always been one of the most just easily intuitive parts of my craft. It just makes sense to me. I definitely was practicing kitchen magic long before I realized any of that or that I was a witch, anything. And quite honestly, many of us are. Why? Because we all eat food and drink beverages like water to survive. So even if you don't cook, you at least somewhat prepare your food. There's at least some sort of ritual that can take place, even if it's at a restaurant and you always pick up your napkin and put it in your lap first and then grab your fork and then wait for everyone at the table to eat. That's a right. You're treating the meal with these little sacred respects around it and creating a little ritual. So if you're a witch, let's just like inject some intention into there and make it witchcraft. That's really all that you have to do in all of life. I'm serious. And if you're a witch and there's something that you do every single day, my friend, that is a wonderful opportunity to take what's what we would call like a mundane or a daily routine and ritual and turn it into a very sacred ritual or even spell work. Okay. So let's dive in to kitchen magic. I'm so excited. So historically, food has been used in ritual since, to use a vague term, since the dawn of time. But for sure, food has been used in rituals since the Paleolithic era. Now, the Paleolithic era has been taught to us in what I would honestly call very silly ways. There were many types of humans. I believe, I'm so sorry if I get this wrong, but I believe they're hominids in general, okay? And they're all part of the Homo species. And there were many, not just Homo sapiens, okay? There were many, and Neanderthals are part of them. Like each of them, when you look up the definition of the different, again, I'm hoping that I'm correct, hominids, the different species in the Homo erectus. Oh, I'm almost positive, man. I should have made note on that. My point, all I'm trying to make a point in is that there are many different types of species before we really came into the brain that we started having today. The brain that started the ancient thriving civilizations, okay? Thousands and thousands of years ago. Before that, when we were in the Paleolithic era, we did have societies and groups, however, but we have been taught very often in a lot of particularly Western society that these were very savage groups and they weren't very civilized in any manner. But the more that you actually do your own research and kind of broaden your perspective beyond whatever you were taught super watered down on your, elementary school field trip or whatever, you will find that is not true. Though this was a much simpler form of human, though there was a different kind of understanding of their world and their experience than we have today, this was not some uncivilized savage. We really need to stop that in education, in historical education, that just because it was ancient peoples, it automatically means savages and brutes and automatically violent. It actually depends on many other factors. Who was the group? What was the culture? There's a ton to go into that. But even during the Paleolithic era, which we would call quote unquote cavemen times, we definitely have food being used in ritual, namely animal and blood sacrifice. And this is something that I specifically wanted to bring up today because this is something that to this goddamn day is used over and over again to further the harmful stereotypes and stigmas against witches and magic practitioners. Okay, or honestly, anyone that practices earth religions, in my opinion. where there's roots in ancient peoples. Here's the deal. People, the whole point of a sacrifice, the whole point of an offering to a being, to a deity, as a show of gesture, whatever the intention is, okay? The whole point of a sacrifice and an offering is that it is something sacred to you. You have to be giving something up. If it's something that you have in just crazy overabundance, would you necessarily call that a sacrifice? No, not really. So during these times when meat was one of the most valuable types of food that you could get your hands on, okay? As soon as we started cooking meats, the human brain started flourishing on a whole different kind of level. As soon as we were able to start cooking our food and our bodies were able to start accessing different nutrients that we couldn't before, like fucking game changer. And meat was and that type of protein, that was one of the most valuable sources of food. Regardless of how you feel about meat eating in any way, shape, or form, now in modern times, I'm not talking about that. So honestly, straight up put that aside. I'm not talking about that. We're talking about during a time when that type of thought form wasn't even feasible. There very well were people that in ancient times slowly started giving worship to animals and not harming them. But I'm talking about I'm honestly talking about more than 20,000 years ago, more than 30,000 years ago is what I'm talking about. That's an insanely long time ago, just to give you perspective. So the whole point of animal and blood sacrifice was because animal meat was so valuable. Okay, it wasn't this brutal, violent intention. That's what I want to remove for it. The point of blood sacrifice is that blood is also one of the most valuable and healing and life-giving substances on our earth, on our planet, in our existence. And so blood it represented life. It represented experience. It represented passion and love and healing. Truly, there is so much beautiful healing in blood. And over time, we have been so conditioned to abominate all of these practices and call them violent and to be fearful of them. And then we're fearful of blood and all of these things, okay? I want you to try and understand the representation and the intention behind these acts and the intention behind the symbolism for these people, okay? And then what we do is we start to understand how we bring these concepts into our modern world, into our modern food ritual and our modern kitchen witchery, okay? So that all being said, you do not have to be a meat eater. You do not have to be a vegetarian. You do not have to be a vegan. You do not have to abide by a fucking diet to be a witch. Any kind. You are the owner of your body, okay? And eating is one of the most, and drinking and hydrating is one of the most physical and earthly and grounding things that we can do, right? Because we're literally nourishing our meat sacks. we're keeping ourselves alive and surviving, right? And so this is a wonderful connection to earth energy. It is a wonderful connection to balance and harmonize all four elements, quite honestly. But the act of eating itself is a very earthly based energy to it. So I don't want you to feel like you have to get wrapped up in too much, at least, into the ethics of what you eat. do your research from a multitude of sources, read what multiple people have to say from all sides, the eating meat side, the not eating meat side, the not eating any animal product side. Listen to all different sides. Look at resources that come from all different sides. You can try things out and see what feels good for your body, okay? The reason I'm really making a point to bring all this up is in my journey and research of kitchen magic, I cannot tell you how many times I was guilt tripped into feeling terrible that I wasn't a vegan or vegetarian at the least. And I just want to give freedom of choice to anyone listening to this. And I want you to make an empowered decision, regardless of what decision that is, on how you nourish your body. Okay. At the end of the day, that's what you're doing. So some of the books and resources that I will recommend towards the end, some of them, well, I'll give a little bit of disclaimers, but again, I want you to take authors or any authority or leader in this industry and fields opinions with a grain of salt every single time and do what is best for you and your fucking body. And beyond that, your household. Okay. If there's anybody that you live with that you also consume foods and beverages with. Okay. Now, the best way to explain kitchen magic, kitchen witchery, and why everyone can do it, not just cooks and bakers, for example. The best explanation is that you are putting your energy and your intention. Sometimes those are very, very specific intentions. Sometimes it's more of, energetic intention, right? I am putting a lot of concentration and focus into this. Sometimes it's to manifest something specific. You know what I mean? So, regardless where you land on that spectrum, it is the act of visualizing and evoking that energy and infusing it into whatever you and or other people are going to consume, whether that's food or beverage, okay? This is why it doesn't matter if you cook or not, because even while, I have lots of examples here and resources that I'll be giving you guys, but there are tons of ways to get your intention in there is what I'm trying to say, without being the person who created the food or the beverage itself. All right. Now let's talk a little bit about how to. So if the main deal here is your intention and your energy that you're putting into food, then suffice to say, your energy and your intention while you're preparing your meals or beverages fucking matters. Matters. And by the way, it matters all the time. You will find, and I have as well, this is a pretty fail-safe test that I've done, and I encourage you to start paying attention and observing this experience for yourself as well. You will see your ability to manipulate energy depending on how you were feeling while you were preparing your food. So it's a wonderful opportunity for mindfulness, whereas most of us have turned mealtime and having a drink or whatever, any kind of drink, and I don't mean alcoholic or non-alcoholic, any kind of drink, mindlessly. We live in a society, let's be fucking honest about it, especially in America. Oh my God, we have tarnished the sacred act of cooking and eating and food so much in our culture. I am a diehard foodie and have been, God, since I was like 15 years old. All my friends would watch MTV when they would get home from school, and I would watch Food Network. I'm not kidding. And that was what I would watch. Shout out to my best friend in high school who would actually watch Food Network with me too. But yeah, I luckily, because I've been so in the culture and the industry for so long, there are amazing people in this country doing some incredible things for the food industry. If you just go looking and you give them your support over so many of these other unethical giant corporate conglomerates that just not only destroy us because we consume this stuff, but they're destroying our earth with industrialized agriculture. And obviously, obviously with all of the absolutely inhumane and torturous animal abuse, right? In the meat industry. So everywhere you look, you can find toxicity, especially in our society here. But if you make the effort to reclaim this sacred practice that is kitchen magic and kitchen witchcraft, and make food and drink sacred, and really just make it magical again in general, I think that we will continue seeing these beautiful, beautiful waves of change and start seeing more and more of these other systems going down for good. So with that really good inspiration in mind, how do you kitchen magic? Danny, how do you do it? Well, couple of things. Number one, I have a really good blog post about this that I really want all of you to check out. It's just on my blog, but it's also linked on the resources page. So you can get to it from the link hub, or you can get to it just by going to the blog page on my website. Really, really good post with lots of ideas and inspiration. Charging with your intention, which we are actually going to go over a couple of these in the episode. But I want you to come back to the blog post to learn more about seasoning mindfully and really using the herbs and spices and salts that you already have, because that can be added to even food that's already been cooked and prepared. There's also some good info and inspiration and ideas for kitchen magic with moon magic and the moon phases, as well as a little bonus salt spell at the very end of the post. So make sure that you go check that out. I think that you'll like it a lot, especially if you've been interested in learning more about kitchen witchcraft. And then we'll go over some of my favorite resources at the end. But to give everybody a good basic understanding on the episodes that you feel like you can go ahead and get started, honestly, the biggest thing is selecting items to charge or infuse with your intention. You can do this with the food while you're physically cooking, while you're stirring something in, while you're pouring something in, right? You can hold the bowl of flour in your hands and close your eyes and envision it being infused with the light of all of your intention and all of your magic before you add the flour to the recipe. You can do this at the very, very end. A lot of times when I was first starting out, I was like, oh my God, I wasn't nearly as in the moment with my intention while I was cooking as I meant to be. It's a practice. It's a habit that you have to build. I saw a couple really what I feel are discouraging posts from other witches a few years ago with relatively large platforms saying, you can't just make food and cast a spell over it and eat it and call it kitchen magic or whatever. You have to actually cook it and infuse it with it's this whole long process. Listen, I understand the sacredness and the ritual that you're trying to protect and uphold. Totally understand. And we still need to be realistic about how we build habits, and mindfulness is one of those. And so if you have been taught and conditioned to tap out mentally and energetically while you're cooking or eating, whether it's just sitting there and scrolling on your phone or microwaving everything so you can just keep watching your Netflix show, or you can keep working. I'm bad about that. I will keep working, or I'll keep doing a chore while I'm eating, or while I'm cooking or whatever. Now, not every single meal can I sit there and like create a whole entire hour-long cooking ritual out of it. No. And so that's where understanding how to very simply and effectively infuse your intention into everything that you do, into a couple elements, into a couple of layers, hopefully to start out, maybe a couple of meals a week. You remember to do that and you start doing that. And then maybe your next goal is that once a day for one of your meals or one of your beverages, you make it with intention, or you you hold it in your hands and you really charge it or program it with your intention and your manifestation. Then maybe it starts building up from there and it's once a meal, okay? And then by that point, it is so much more part of your movements all of a sudden. All of a sudden, no matter what you're cooking, no matter what utensils you're using, if you're using the microwave, if it's takeout, if it's whatever, before you know it, you have built these beautiful mindfulness habits that really bring, and it's almost like it starts happening automatically because you took so much time and patience to build that habit. It's like your awareness automatically is brought earthside and really brings you into the moment with your meal or your beverage, whatever it is. So you can incorporate this into snack time. It could be your late night dessert. That's a great one because the witching hour, right? Don't try to just be this perfect kitchen witch and then give up in a week because you're like, well, that's hard. It's not hard. It's not hard at all. It's extremely, extremely easy. You just need to be patient and realistic with yourself about how long it takes to build mindfulness habits like this. So start off with a simple goal. I'm going to make one mindful or one magical meal a week. Okay. And we'll start getting into, let's see here. Yeah, I want to start kind of getting into some of the different correspondences associated with kitchen and a little bit of hearth magic as well, because they are very, very intertwined most often. But for example, to help you in your goal, a wonderful couple of days that you could choose from to set that goal. I'm going to make a magical meal a week. Monday would be a lovely day. Ruled by the moon, caregiving, our emotional needs and emotional experience. Okay. Nurturing. And so Monday is a really, really beautiful day for that. Friday is a really beautiful day for that because this is ruled by Venus. And Venus, being this ruler of all things love, art, and beauty. Oh, whoa. Food falls into that category. Many of us show and receive love through food and through meal times, whether it's just sitting down at dinner and eating together, or actually, yes, making a meal for somebody, or making like cookies or baked item for somebody. Before we get to the deities that you can invoke and work with to help start strengthening or bonding and connecting to your kitchen magic and kitchen witchery more, there are a couple of other ways to infuse your energy or your intention into your food. So like I said, that could be into the object directly, whether it's the actual food itself or the plateware that you're using or the utensils that you're using, and just envisioning them being infused with your magic and your intention. You can also use sigils and symbols really, really easily and really, really effectively in kitchen magic, because there's so many different types of ways to kind of paint or draw with food, number one. So you can use chocolate syrup, you can use whipped cream, you can use, honestly, just like a pile of herbs, right? And with your fingers, kind of scatter it to create lines or symbols. You can create stencils to do the same thing and use seasonings or powders over stencils. There are tons and tons of free printable stencils online of all kinds of of pictures and symbols and sigils, quite honestly. And it's really easy to create your own. I'm not going to super get into how to do sigils right now because we're doing kitchen magic today. But you can also, if you don't want to, or you're not able to physically, use something to draw or paint the sigil on, you can just use your finger or use a wand of some sort. And so here's my handy dandy wand, my pen, which is quite a sacred tool, is it not? And honestly, if I have food in front of me or if I have my drink, okay, right, I have my tea here, you can just in the air, I hope you're watching YouTube, just in the air, a little bit above your drink or a little above your food, right? I'll just draw the symbol of a pentacle over it. And I really, when I'm using or doing wand work, whether it's with a physical wand or I'm using my finger, I really try to bring that visualization forth as much as possible. I try to, whether if you need to close your eyes in order to see it clearer in your mind, or with practice, it's easier and easier to start seeing that with your eyes open, but it doesn't matter either way. So that's a really simple way to infuse energy into your foods. And you could do that anywhere at any time with any food, right? That would be so easy and very simple to be pretty discreet at a restaurant, right? When you're out and about or at a coffee shop, you don't even have to physically do it if you don't want to. You could just look and stare at the food or stare at your cup and envision really, again, as visual and graphic as you can and picturesque in your mind. So if you need to close your eyes, people are going to think you're praying, and good. It's a sacred thing you're about to do. That's one thing that I will never, ever, ever knock many religions for, is for praying over food and praying at meal times and creating a sacredness around food and meals. So you can close your eyes even and just picture a symbol or a sigil of some kind, a name, right? A phrase or a term, and just envision that in glowing light of whatever color that resonates most for you and your intention or in that moment. And picture it really kind of, I at least for me, I kind of picture it like cascading down on top of and laying on top of the food or on top of the drink and then kind of sinking and dissolving into it, okay? There's tons of ways to do it. Practice at home if you feel weird out in public, but you shouldn't, quite honestly, because you're a magical person and you're amazing. Now, so sigils and symbols, charging objects and food directly. These are all wonderful ways to infuse your intention. You can do that during the cooking process. You can do that during the prep process. And then seasonings, I really, really want to encourage you to do some very basic research on the most common herbs and seasonings and salts that you use. Don't get wrapped up in what you should use. Don't get wrapped up in what everybody else uses. What do you already use? Are you a salt and pepper person? Do you salt and pepper your food every single time? Dope. Both of those are really fucking magical. Get on the internet, get on Google and look it up. We're going to have a little disclaimer at the end about Google and resources and stuff at the end. So stay tuned for that. But, hop on, do some research very briefly, whether it's on the internet or in books, which I have a couple here to recommend, but get some basic background knowledge on the herbs that you're using all the time. If you constantly use cinnamon, whether it's cinnamon sugar on your toast or cinnamon in your coffee or vanilla in your coffee, any of those flavored syrups that you use, look up the meaning and the spiritual meaning behind those syrups, okay? And it's a really easy way to start incorporating your intention into your food and your mealtime or your beverage or whatever, okay? So I do always say just even a little bit of herbal knowledge goes a very, very long way in cooking and in kitchen magic. Now, on to some like astro tips and info for getting started and different energy you can use like in your chart and your astrological knowledge and bring that into your kitchen magic, as well as some deities that you can incorporate into your practice as well. So deities, I pulled, there are many, and for the sake of time, I just pulled a few, but some of the top most common or popular are the Greek and Roman goddesses, respectively, Hestia and Vesta. Okay, both hearth and home and kitchen goddesses. Demeter and Ceres, respectively, Greek and Roman as well. Goddesses of harvest, agriculture, grain, abundance. Okay, and so any type of deity for hearth and home, gonna be awesome for kitchen magic, okay? Any type of deity that is in the realm of abundance and solar, okay? That's gonna be a great deity to work with very often, as well as anyone associated with fertility or cycles or moon or lunar energy, okay? Both the sun and the moon are very, very present in all kinds of kitchen magic and witchcraft. It is not exclusive to one or the other. It totally depends on a million things. I'm not even going to go into all the things it depends on. We've kind of covered a lot of those, right? So don't limit yourself to one or the other. If you worship or follow any kind of solar deities or lunar deities or both, lovely. Because the moon and the sun are used so frequently in gardening and planting and agriculture and have been since, again, dawn of time, dawn of civilization. And so these are also very naturally, easily food deities as well. So anybody that's, god of certain animals that we commonly eat, or gods of blood, or gods of, or deities of grain, okay, things like that, grain, or anything that we grow. We can incorporate that into food magic. We also, very popular, of course, have Bridget, who is a Celtic goddess, very, very ancient goddess that likely also has pre-Celtic roots, Druidic roots. We also have Caradwyn. I hope that I'm pronouncing that correct. The ancient Welsh deity, also of food and house. Of cauldron specifically. Cauldron, by the way, the symbol of the cauldron is major in kitchen magic, okay? Is a big, big symbol of kitchen witches, big symbol of hearth witches. And that's because the cauldron was one of, if not the main cooking receptacle that you had, okay? And so if you've always found yourself very drawn to the symbol of cauldrons like I did, I was like, oh, well, that makes sense. And Caradwyn definitely is associated with the cauldron symbol. We also have Zhao Jun, the Chinese kitchen god, one of the most prominent deities that will come up when you research kitchen deities. And then also Bes and Beset, both the masculine and feminine ancient Egyptian deities of household as well. So this was just a very slim fraction that I mentioned on the actual show. I included some resources and links for y'all in the link hub on the resources page. I also have some good books here that should be a good jumping off point for you if working with a deity is something that you'd like to incorporate into your kitchen magic. But a lot of times, if you're like me and many other kitchen witches, we'll have an altar in our kitchen, or it could be at your hearth, at your fireplace if you have one. But for many modern witches, it's just wherever you eat or prepare food the most often, even if it's just a kitchenette. And you can have a small space that you dedicate to one of your deities, and you leave bits of offerings of food that you made, especially food that you incorporated that deity's energy into. You want to give a little bit back to them for them helping and assisting you. I give lots of beverages to my deities, and quite honestly, my kitchen altar, very often for me, because I'm a hearth witch and because the hearth, or wherever you cook your food, because food gives us life and survival. The kitchen has been so longly associated with the heart and lifeblood of a home. So very often I'll leave specific offerings or I'll do specific rituals at my kitchen altar because I want it to go out into the lifeblood of my home specifically, okay? So keep all of these things in mind for your work as well. As far as astrology goes, you may have recognized a couple of the names I said when we were talking about deities. Vesta and Ceres are both asteroids as well. If you don't see those asteroids in your astrological chart, they usually have to be turned on by a manual setting in whatever app or website that you're using. And you want to turn on the asteroids in your chart so that you can see where your Vesta and your Ceres is. Ceres is the Roman counterpart or goddess, same as the Greek goddess Demeter, okay, of grain and agriculture and harvest, that summer harvest and abundance. And then Hestia, or in Greek mythology, or Vesta, the asteroid and also deity in Roman mythology, she is the goddess of hearth and home. And she really represents like this quiet, ongoing endurance and resiliency. Hestia was not very active and loud with the other gods. She was all about keeping, and Bridget is very similar to this. They're all going to have these connections. It was all about keeping that fire burning, keeping that warmth going, okay, that resiliency. And so that's why we celebrate a lot, if not all of these deities on Imbolc, like we talked about on my Instagram last week on February 1st and 2nd is when that is celebrated. It's the halfway point between winter solstice and spring equinox. And it's all about keeping that flame going, getting through the end of winter and getting to spring. Okay. And this is when we really call on hearth magic and hearth deities because they bring that strength and that resiliency of the lifeblood of the home. All right. You can also explore what signs and therefore what planets rule your second and fourth houses. These are very commonly associated with food because they're traditionally ruled by Taurus and Venus for the second house, and fourth house traditionally ruled by Cancer and the moon. Like we talked about, Moon and Venus, very, very associated with nurturing and therefore food and nourishment. I also wanted to add in there, however, we don't often think of this, the ninth house. And because the ninth house is this house of exploration and adventure and seeking new cultures and seeking new ideas, I also like to look at the ninth house, what rules your house, and again, therefore, what planet rules that house, so that you can start to tap into your adventurous spirit, to go try new kinds of foods and to learn more about food culture, not just in our current society, but in other modern societies, as well as in ancient societies as well. Now, planets that you can work with really specifically in your chart, you can look up and see what signs these fall in for you are going to be Venus and the moon, like I said, Ceres, the asteroid, Vesta, the asteroid, like I said, but then also Jupiter, because Jupiter is this abundance giver, okay, and such an adventurer himself and that ruler of Sagittarius. Jupiter, being this big god of celebration, is very often also associated with food and with meals and drink, okay? So those are some great places to start in your chart. Now, as far as my favorite resources go, and of course, if you want any help specifically on your chart, how can I use my astrological chart to really up my kitchen magic game or connect to my kitchen witchcraft? Message me. We can always schedule a session together. Now, this is also something we are definitely going to work with in that witch school. It's one of the many branches of magic that we'll definitely talk about and learn about and get recipes and spells and all that good stuff for. Of course, if a kitchen witch is running the school, you can bet your butt on that. Now, I want to show you first, before I show you some of my favorite books, I want to make a couple of notes. So one of the first books I ever got when I very first started practicing, and I still have it because there's some good references in here, but I have a very meh relationship with, is this book right here. It's Scott Cunningham's Wicca in the Kitchen. So we're going to talk about this on another episode. I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole right now. I did start off, as many witches do, as identifying Wiccan on the Wicca path. And it pretty quickly did not resonate with me for some of the things, that we talked about at the beginning of the episode, and some of the information that you can find in some of the books that can feel a little discouraging or a little guilt-ridden, quite honestly. However, I do want to say, guess what? It is possible to take parts of books that you need and leave the rest behind. That's totally fine. So a book like this, Wicca in the Kitchen, and I'm going to link all of these because it's totally up to you. And by the way, I'm not bashing Wicca by any means. And if you identify as a Wiccan, that's amazing. It is something that many of us start out on because we're told it's the only path that we can be on. And we find ourselves in a similar place we felt before, which is I found myself somewhere where I don't fit or I don't belong all the way. That's the only reason I bring it up, is because that happens really commonly. Now, Wicca in the Kitchen by Scott Cunningham. Again, I am going to call it what it is. Gets a little bit preachy in some parts. However, my favorite part about this book is at the very end, there are planetary and astrological food correspondences and beverage correspondences in here that I really, really enjoy. And then there are some really good ideas for recipes. There's some specific recipes, but also just good ideas for recipes based on specific spices, specific herbs, specific intentions, specific Sabbats or celebrations. So it does have plenty of valuable information, but if you feel attacked by it, just ignore that part. And, it's something, sometimes you can find that at the library. So if you don't want to pay for it, you can just, read it and absorb what you need. Now, to bring up Cunningham one more time, I do have the Cunningham's Encyclopedia of Magical Herbs. Now this bad boy is one of my favorite books ever. It is extremely useful. It is very well stocked. This is, for how thin this book is, there is quite a decent variety in here of herbs and plants, and it's not a book, an herbalism book centric around medicinal herbalism, which can kind of be hard to find. It's about the magical and spiritual and metaphysical qualities and vibrations of the plants and herbs. So this is just an amazing, very, very stacked reference guide to have. I also love Supermarket Magick. This is by Michael Fury, and there is lots of good information about kitchen magic in here. There are some really amazing recipes in here. I always love when a book comes stacked with lots of recipes, because I don't necessarily make them exact, but one recipe can provide loads of inspiration for me. But what I really specifically like about this book is it's very similar to what we started off talking about in the episode, all about bringing this very ancient practice into our modern life and still really maintain that sacred magic around it. Okay, now, the House Witch, is going to be mentioned on the show multiple times, just because, oh my God, if a handbook was ever written for me, it might be this book. This is by Erin Murphy Hiscock, and she also wrote The Green Witch. So that's why, if you've never seen this, but it looks familiar, that's probably why. Green Witch is a very, very popular, also very valuable book. This just hit home for me. This is a wonderful, wonderful, this little tiny thing is just stacked with value for kitchen and hearth witches alike. Now, couple last things here. We have, of course, Llewellyn's complete book of correspondences. This is still not a totally, exhaustive source. This isn't 100% complete. That doesn't exist. I do have to tell you, my disclaimer I had for you at the end. Y'all, so many of you reach out to me asking for additional resources. And I promise you that I give them to you as they come to me, as I find them. In fact, I have 2 new ones here that we can all try together. I haven't read them, so don't quote me on them yet. But if you want to read them along with me. That would be awesome. But many of you are looking for some kind of one-stop shop, and it does not exist. The path of witchcraft, the path of magic, and all of its branches and cultures beneath that is way too broad. There are no one-stop shops. This is one of the closest for at least a jumping off point. Because it's a cross-reference guide, it gives tables of information, okay? If you're on YouTube, you can kind of see here. Hopefully you can kind of get an idea. That's it. That's what every single page looks like. It's just tables that are organized and categorized on different, all kinds of categories. Colors, days of the week, moon phases, astrological bodies and planetary bodies, as well as herbs. Every single rune is in there. Every single tarot card is in there. Then you can also just start by looking via intention first. You can just go to love, lust, banishing. You can go to any of that stuff. There's a whole section for deities, herbs, trees, gemstones. This thing is freaking stacked. Again, it's linked. There's a reason I recommend it so often. It's one of my favorite jumping off points. It's not a one-stop shop. It's a good place to go get a really solid base of information. Sorry about that. Looked up at the clock and all of you saw the true realization on my face that it was time for me to leave to go pick up my daughter from preschool. Let's get back into it. So, Book of Correspondences, really great jumping off point, not a one-stop shop. That doesn't exist unless you want to build all this information yourself over time and make your own. Now, as for the last final two here, like I said, I just recently got these. If you follow me on Instagram, you probably saw me post that I went a little crazy at the bookstore recently. But I have both of these. I have, right here, YouTube, I have Kitchen Witchery, which is Unlocking the Magic in Everyday Ingredients by Laurel Woodward. And then I also have The Hearth Witch's Year, Rituals, Recipes, and Remedies Through the Seasons by Anna Franklin. I am very much a seasonal witch, so that's why I went with The Hearth Witch's Year. But tons and tons of kitchen magic in The Hearth Witch's Year, and obviously Kitchen Witchery is all about that. I have started like the very first chapter of Kitchen Witchery, and I've, flipped through Hearth Witch's Year a few times, but I'm not super familiar yet. So if you want to embark on those books with me, or if you've already read them and love them, or you want to send me any feedback, I would love to have that as well. So there are the books. The resources page is updated for everybody. I will include my blog post on there, but again, you can also just go to the blog. Don't forget to subscribe to my email list, that Witch Gazette. It's actually launching next week on the full moon, but this is going to be the main and best hub to stay in touch with all things That Witch Next Door in the witchy neighborhood. So you'll get all of the notifications for blog posts there. I'll have good educational info, of course, and inspirational info and tips and recipes and things like that, of course. But it's going to be the main page to keep up on everything current going on here, from working with me in my current services, everything going on with that witch school, and all of the content that I'm putting out for everybody. So I hope that this episode really, really inspired you to, if you've never practiced kitchen magic, to try it, honestly, to just try it. Start incorporating sacredness and magic into your meal times, into your food, into your beverages. And if you already practice, I hope that this still gave you a nice fresh burst of motivation or inspiration. As always, if you have any questions, if anything came up, if you want to share anything with me, you can submit a contact form to me on my website, thatwitchnextdoor.com/conjurethatwitch. Thank you all so much. This was an amazing start to season 2. I am so fucking excited to keep going on this journey with all of you. Thank you. Thank you. Make sure you stay safe, keep having fun, and stay magical out there.